Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Cosmic Radio Network with Michael Garrett and me. I'm Rich Rudner. Please join us this evening as we explore what's out there, and you can be part of the most intelligent talk on the planet here on the Cosmic Radio Network. And now I'd like to turn it over to my partner and good buddy, Michael Garrett.
Oh, this is Michael Garrett, and welcome to the program. And welcome to you, Rich, who just flew in. I was a little concerned whether you were going to make it from the airport or not.
You weren't the only one.
From where were you?
I was in Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas.
Yes, I was having a wonderful time there. Unfortunately, the plane ran into a little turbulence on the way back, and took a little while to get back. But we're here, and we're glad to be here. That's for sure.
Well, I'm glad to see you here, given some other events that have occurred today. But we'll get to that in a little while. Well, let me see where to start tonight, since I've had a little problem today with our guest that was going to be on the show. But I guess I'd like to say that last week on our first program, this is program number 2, we began by discussing UFOs or flying saucers. After the program and pretty much throughout the week, we talked to a number of people who were listening to the program, although they didn't call and they know who they are. We all agreed that the subject matter that we started last week was so huge that one one-hour program couldn't hope to cover it. In fact, there's so much information about UFOs and extraterrestrials that we probably couldn't exhaust it if we dealt with it every day. So we decided we'd continue that discussion this week with the emphasis, instead of just on UFOs, we're going to talk a little bit about extraterrestrials, alien beings. Now, people have reported seeing and interacting with alien beings now for about 50 years. Whether they're just coming to visit us, enlighten us, observe us, sometimes even abduct us, according to the reports, in their spaceships, and for reasons that we can only guess. So tonight's topic will be E.T., the extraterrestrial, and I guess that was...
That's why I'm playing the theme. I try to be as topical as I possibly can, Michael.
There you go. So are beings from other... The questions really are beings from other worlds piloting their spacecraft here, and if so, what do they want? Do we have anything to fear from this situation? Does our government know what's going on? I'd like you to call and let us know what you think. Let me give you that phone number again, 954-581-1580, 1580. So give us a call. We want to have you be a part of the program and give your opinions, I'm sure that you have some, on UFOs or extraterrestrials visiting us on this planet. I'm going to be going from some notes, so if it sounds like I'm going from some notes, I hope you'll bear with me, because...
I think you want to... Michael, I think maybe one of the first things we're going to talk about is what's been in the news all this week, and probably some people are wondering about it right now, and that is all the lights, that the sightings. Once again, the lights have come up in Phoenix. And we're not talking about an old song here by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, we were just talking earlier before we went on the air about hard copy got into it. So once again, we're back into this particular area. And we are going to spend some time talking about aliens today and that sort of thing. But since this is so topical, Michael, I think perhaps we ought to deal with it a little bit.
Well, let me...
I just threw him off, folks.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It is something that was in the news and has been in the news, and for people who do follow the UFO information that's out there, either on the web pages or in little snippets that you can sometimes pick up from regular newspapers that you might hear, or on some of the programs like, in this case it was hard copy, but very often Sightings has done a little piece on it, and those are the lights over Phoenix. I have a press release here, and this just goes to show you how in the mainstream UFOs have become. So I'm going to read this press release, and it came from a couple of stories in the Arizona Republic newspaper about January 13th and 14th, so last month, 1998. And here's the release. Former Phoenix, Arizona City Councilwoman Frances Emma Barwood held a press conference at noon on January 13th in downtown Phoenix to formally announce her plan to seek the office of Secretary of State of Arizona. In her announcement, Barwood made political history by also declaring her intention to make a campaign issue of the evidence that UFOs are traversing U.S. airspace and the federal government has failed to respond appropriately to public concern. Although Jimmy Carter, when running for president in 1976, declared his interest in UFOs, Barwood is arguably the first viable candidate for high office, state or national, who has formally made UFOs a campaign issue. Barwood is a Republican, but the state's GOP establishment is likely to treat her as if she just arrived from Neptune, quipped the Arizona Republic, the state's leading newspaper. Barwood is now an international poster girl for the UFO crowd, the paper said. Interesting to me how the media always reacts with disdain for on the whole UFO issue. Anyway, Barwood said, "I've been called worse. It doesn't scare me." Barwood reportedly appeared with a group of UFO researchers from across the country to announce her bid for Secretary of State. Her campaign manager is Stephen Bassett, a Washington, D.C.-based UFO lobbyist and political strategist. Bassett predicted that Barwood will become an international figure because of her campaign pledge to bring allegations of an official UFO cover-up into the open. This campaign is going to truly be the road less traveled. In fact, this campaign is going to be the road never traveled, Bassett said. Barwood's attention to the UFO issue began with the widespread sightings of aerial objects and lights above Phoenix on March 13th, first on March 13th, 1997. The failure of the Arizona-based federal military facilities to adequately respond to citizens' queries led her to raise the matter in a city council session. While the events of March 13th were already receiving national attention, the mere action of calling for a proper investigation resulted in a firestorm of personal attacks, and she was forced to drop her efforts toward a public inquiry. "This made me realize we have a problem with the government's lack of openness," Barwood said recently. "What was the most astonishing thing to me to find out, all the times in the past people did ask, and all they got was ridicule." So as Secretary of State, she added she would be in the position to ask for investigations into incidents like those of March 13th, 1997. "This is a public safety issue of state and national significance, which should not, in good conscience, be ignored by a responsible candidate for high office," Barwood said in a prepared statement. So that's the press release. It's recent UFO information, and evidently these lights have been sighted again, and by hundreds of people. The first sighting, the reason it brought so much attention was that people actually videotaped it. It lasted for an extended period of time. Many people reported it to the local television stations and the radio stations and to the local government. And then, of course, they all sought confirmation from the local military authorities. Eventually, an answer was forthcoming, and that answer has been flares. That the military has dropped flares.
Not again.
In some sort of an exercise in the desert. I was just out in Phoenix, I think it was August, fall of this year, and what strikes you out west in some areas, Arizona and Nevada in particular, is how much area of the sky is visible from any particular location. I mean, just huge areas of the night sky, and the day sky for that matter, are visible, and how clear the sky can be out there. We think of looking up in the sky here in a city like Miami or Fort Lauderdale, this whole East Coast area. There's so many lights here that we can't even see all the stars that are visible if you just, for instance, go out into the middle of the Everglades and where there are no lights, you can see stars. Well, the same thing is true in the desert. You can see for very, very vast distances. And these people who reported this incident and then commented on camera afterwards about the government's response was they felt as though they were being treated as though they were ignorant. Because these people live out there, many of them mentioned they'd lived out there for a long time, and they had seen flares in their life, and they had seen various aircrafts living next to a military facility like that. Mm-hmm. You're going to see quite a bit of activity all the time.
Well, let me start. I got to ask you this, Michael. I mean, this is something that's been bothering me in particular for quite a while. When is the government going to say, well, maybe the public is not that stupid? You know, maybe how long are they going to keep buying the same story? We've been hearing the same stories for 50 years or more, you know, and I mean, do we hear anything back from them, and what's the story?
Well, one interesting insight I'd offer, a lot of people think that the government denies the existence of UFOs and extraterrestrials. I mean, that's somewhat of a general consensus to most people I speak with. Having looked at a number of the documents that the United States government has released under the Freedom of Information Act, and there are quite a large number of these documents, even though the documents that I've seen and are available through a number of sources still have huge areas blacked out. So imagine that there were original reports on UFOs dating back to, obviously, Roswell, although very little is, it seems that many of the reports concerning Roswell and other incidents have been destroyed over the years, and everyone denies that ownership or having them. And then the rest of these reports that are now released under the Freedom of Information Act, you know, sometimes entire pages are blacked out. So one has to wonder what it is on those pages that the government doesn't want you to read. Their pat reaction is that it has to do with either systems or ways of reporting or ways that the government works that might have some security concerns by various agencies within the government. But anyway, that being the case, what I was getting to was that even during the 20 years or so of Project Blue Book, where the government admitted and actually set up Project Blue Book and a number of studies where they would go out and investigate in the field reports of UFO sightings, of the 13,000 or so that they chose to investigate, many that they did not choose to investigate, they wrote many of them off as being weather balloons and jet aircraft and stars.
And flares.
And flares, don't forget the flares. And that's not unusual, because the fact of the matter is, probably many, many, many of the reports, I mean, I don't doubt, are flares and weather balloons and aircraft and all sorts of things. But out of the 13,000 reports that Project Blue Book did, and they were, I think, concerned with controlling the information that the public had for a variety of reasons, rather than trying to prove the phenomenon. It seems that if you look at the Blue Book history, it was made up of skeptics and government personnel who tried to play down the situation. So what are they hiding? Well, a lot of people said that they feel that the government has disavowed that UFOs exist. What I read in many of the documentations is, and the reason for dissolution of the studies, are a number of reasons. One of them says there's no scientific value, so the government's going to stop studying it. And some of the other papers say that poses, the phrase I believe was, poses no significant military threat. So that's a big difference from doesn't exist. So in effect, by saying that the UFO phenomenon poses no significant risks, what they're actually saying is there are UFOs. They just don't pose significant risks. And why don't they pose significant risks is a question that I think we could ask.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. I think we're actually getting a phone call here. Do we have a question?
Yes, we do.
All right. Can we figure out how to get it up on the air?
Oh, I think we probably can. Let me just see if we can't do a little bit of something right here. And, yeah, we can. I think we can make this thing work for us. I got to reach over here.
All right. We're pushing buttons again this week.
I know. It's a dangerous thing when you're pushing buttons at all times. Let's see. Do we have you, Ron from Pembroke Pines? You there? Ron, are you there?
Uh-oh.
I don't know. Ron, are you with us, buddy? Doing?
Okay, fine.
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, you know, you're talking about the government and all that, and I'd like to tell you of a very recent incident I had, because it's always been on my mind about the plausible deniability that the government uses to admit or not admit things. And a couple of months ago, I was sitting with John Ehrlichman of famous Nixon era and Watergate fame. We were doing a network documentary on the 25th anniversary, and I'd never met the man, and I was sort of curious, not about Watergate, but I had a sort of a burning question regarding extraterrestrials, and I thought, well, you know, this was Nixon's domestic advisor, third position in the White House office right behind Haldeman, and he had charge of domestic affairs. Certainly, if there was anything to know, this man would know about it. So I asked him at dinner, I said, you know, I'd like to ask you a question I'm sure you've never been asked before. And, he said, I've been asked every question there is. I said, well, but this has nothing to do with Watergate. And so his ears sort of perked up, and he said, well, I'm interested then. I said, tell me everything you know about Area 51 in Roswell. Because, you know, figured how many administrations were there since the alleged sighting at Roswell, and how many administrations, including all the senior executives, military officers, enlisted men, NCOs, God knows how many people would have to perpetuate the top secret status of such a denial. And he said it never existed. He says, I'm not just saying that to party line. He said, my God, people have called me a liar before. I went to prison for it, so I have nothing to hide. He said, it is just inconceivable that so many administrations and all that pecking order could keep, for any reason, a secret like this. He says, somewhere the weak link on the chain
all right.
break with someone wanting to go to the Inquirer with the pictures,
right.
first-hand sighting,
right.
Stuff like that. He said, however, just as an aside, there was an interesting thing because right after Nixon was elected, they received a call from an attorney who was very sympathetic and pro-Nixon, and he had a favor, and the favor was to allow one of his clients to get onto Area 51 at Roswell, which at that time was under the control of the Air Force. I think had security supervision, he said. And he wanted to know why. And he said, well, this guy was descended from a long line of Indian chiefs, and he had a map where his ancestors' relics were, and because it was Roswell, their ears sort of picked up and all that, but they gave him the clearance for 30 days to go on there, and at the end of the 30 days, they got a call and they wanted an extension. So he probed into it because he thought, well, he knew about the myths of Roswell and all that. What's going on here? Turned out that this attorney's client was mining gold. He did have a map, and he was a descendant of the Indian chief, but it was a map to some gold. So they kicked him off there.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
In terms of, I understand you sound like a military man. You sound like you know a lot about the military. Is that?
I just spent some time in it.
Is that a fair statement?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have a story that I've heard a number of people tell about the F-117. You're familiar with what that is?
F-117?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The stealth aircraft.
Right.
Evidently, that aircraft was under design, development, and construction for a full decade before we rolled it out. I heard some high-level Air Force pilots who were assigned to fly eventually the 117 reported to the base where they were going to be located, and the first time they, in the military, high-level Air Force pilots who were going to fly this bird, was the first time they'd ever heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how can you develop an aircraft, fly it, and keep it a secret? I would use the same argument that you used in reference to Ehrlichman, which is a marvelous experience. I envy your experience. We ought to have you on the show just to talk about that.
Yeah. I think there's a difference in degree, Michael, where as the development of a secret aircraft could be isolated to a particular location and a particular or a set amount of people for, a certain duration.
A large amount of
Someone
people
to go to
for
the
a decade?
Inquirer to reveal that they're doing this thing is not as big a story as to say, I saw the bodies when they picked them up.
Well, but again, people sign documents when they go to work for the government. And according to some of the people who have come forward in recent years, the documents, as well as the briefings that they've gotten from people who have these clearances, tell them that literally they will go to prison, and they will go to prison with no trial. It would be considered a treasonable act. And just in order to get the clearance to get involved in that, you have to be a pretty responsible individual, at least as far as the government feels that they should trust you.
I'm not denying the existence of of extraterrestrials, and neither was he, by the way. He just said that
President Nixon wasn't aware of it, and that he and the staff weren't aware of it. And that follows, by the way, and some people would tell you that we have areas of the government that are so secret that the President of the United States,
I don't know,
as well as congressmen, aren't informed of everything that we do. And I think that if you look back through some of our history, you can see that that's true. I mean, I don't want to be part of I'm not looking for the government to be behind every conspiracy, although I think we could do a whole program on government conspiracy.
Michael, sometimes it takes 30 or 40 years for the government to come clean on something. For instance, in today's Sun-Sentinel, if you read the article about the final white paper on the Bay of Pigs invasion, where the CIA
I did.
Inspector General finally said, we screwed up. We were incompetent.
I did read it.
And, but it's 30 years later
That's right.
that this happened.
And it's
so,
50 years from Roswell, and only it's this year from the Phoenix Lights. There are multiple reasons, I think, why we're entered into this secrecy by the government. And if you'll hold on for a second, because you are an informed and interesting caller, if you'd like to hold on, do we have to go to a break?
Just another minute.
All right. If you can hang around after the break, I'd like to continue talking with you, especially since the phone isn't ringing off the hook, and my guest didn't show up this evening. So
yeah, we're lucky. We're lucky we got Ron here today.
You're
unique.
You're very informed.
Radiate for a while.
Yeah. I did want to say that our plans for this week's show were to have back as our guest from last week Fernando Garces Soto. And Fernando is a UFO enthusiast and a member of MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. I know of MUFON. It's an independent international organization dedicated to finding the truth about UFOs, and that's what I like about them and also about Fernando. But he had a family emergency, and he won't be on this evening. He sends his apologies, and we hope everything will go well with him, and we'll miss his insights. But hey, we have Ron, so it's great. And it's Rich and Ron and me and you all for this evening's program, and we'd like you to join in by calling 581-1580. Tonight we're talking.
Forget the area code now.
954, and tonight we're talking about extraterrestrials. Are we being visited by beings from other worlds?
And that is the question. Again, the phone number is 954-581-1580. I said the number so many times I think I'd get it straight. We wanted to mention that we will continue to look at the issues surrounding UFOs and extraterrestrials in the weeks to come. We'll also be exploring other areas of the paranormal. In fact, in the next weeks, we hope to present a program on psychic readings and discuss the history of psychic phenomena. Might even be able to have some psychic readings for our listeners. So if you have a favorite paranormal subject that you would like to hear discussed, let us know, and we'll try to schedule a program to do so. And we'll be back in just a few minutes, so please stand by. Okay, we are back here on the Cosmic Radio Network, and we're going to close out with Ron. We've got another very interesting fellow coming up on the line from Coral Springs. Ron, can we invite you to call us back next week? We want to move on to another caller. Would you mind?
I'm sorry, say that again?
I say we've got another caller coming in, Ron, and we'd like to move on. Would you mind?
Absolutely, I'll call you back next week.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a caller you might want to listen to, Ron. Might have an answer to some of your questions.
Well, I just have a bit of extraterrestrial trivia to leave you when I go.
Okay.
Klaatu Barada Nikto.
Okay, you just ruined Rich's trivia quiz, but what the heck?
That's okay. That's
just
okay.
Kidding.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Who played Gort's boss?
Who played Gort's boss?
Right. Who was the alien?
Michael Rennie.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Steven,
Ron.
I'll call you next week. Good
Thanks,
night.
man.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
We're going to go to Greg from Coral Springs. Greg, do we have you?
Hello, Greg? Hold on.
Greg, are you there? Hello, Greg.
Stand by. We're having some technical difficulty.
I see lines flashing. I see lines flashing. I don't know why I don't see Greg. Hang on. Maybe I can get him back here. Hold on. Little musical interlude while we try to make this work. Cosmic Radio. Okay. Okay, thanks. Hang on. Put you right on the air right now. Okay. Greg, do we have you?
Hello?
Greg.
Hi there.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Hey, the reason I'm calling is that I used to work at the Naval Research Laboratory up in Washington, D.C. in the late 70s.
Right?
And as far as the aspect of secrecy goes, I have an interesting slant on the subject for you.
Fire away.
Believe it or not, I worked with a few guys that worked on the Manhattan Project. Yeah.
true development of the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
And these guys all told me that they were working on different components of the bomb, and they never knew what they were working on because they used to get engineering drawings from different people, but there was no common thread among them. In other words, they would just be given drawings and said, okay, these are parts that we want made. So as far as the development of the F-117 goes, that could very easily be explained the same way. There's often a lot of subcontractors in the aerospace industry never get to see the bottom line on what the project is all about. They make parts and they get taken to a central location where there are just a few people that actually know what's going on.
Right.
It's really simple to keep something fairly secretive if you really know how to go about it the right way.
Especially when you consider there's so many people out there peering around who want to find out. I think the secrecy of the F-117 is something I bring up because evidently it was there for a decade, and look how little was known about that aircraft.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. But I mean, you can see when I talk about, I mean, when I had the personal experience of knowing people that actually worked on the atomic bomb that really had no clue about what they were doing.
It's remarkable. It's remarkable, and so, but that's one of the arguments that particularly skeptics, hardcore skeptics, use when they're trying to diffuse the UFO issue and saying,
right,
if it was the reality, then somebody would have said something somewhere somehow. When if you look at some of the information, people have said certain things. People have come out, and inevitably they're either discredited or they're poo-pooed, or maybe they're either afraid of ridicule, or, as I said, some of them have even said that their lives were threatened.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I got another little tidbit for you. When I was working up there, I was a contract engineer, okay?
Okay.
I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. And we were working on, are you ready for this? We were working on cold fusion projects back in the middle 70s.
Back in the...
Remember when these guys a couple of years ago were
yes,
trying to develop a process of cold fusion?
Absolutely.
He could either prove or disprove what they were doing?
Right.
And I asked, because I used to work with a bunch of PhD physicists. That's all I worked with. And I was kind of like, believe it or not, as an engineer, the low man on the totem pole, because these guys were supposedly so, quote, brilliant that they needed somebody around to put practicality into their ideas. But anyway, I often asked them, I said, where'd you get these ideas for doing some of these experiments of what we're working on? I said, well, we were supplied something like raw data from the Navy and from the Air Force with no backup. In other words, like, I don't know how to explain it to you because I never really saw the documentation that originated the experiment. They said, why don't you try doing something like this? And kind of just giving a little bit of a guide and then letting those guys go on their own. I mean, if you would think scientists that were interested in pure science would come up with these ideas on their own rather than getting prompted by somebody in the military.
So, in your experience, when you were working on these projects, were there ever any discussions over lunch, cafeteria, nights, whatever? In terms of the military circles and the developmental circles, were there ever any mentions of UFOs or extraterrestrials among the scientific?
To be honest with you, no. Nothing like that was ever discussed.
Nothing.
It was just kind of curious, though, that these people told me that, that they would say that how could the military have an idea that we might be able to work on something like this?
Yeah.
In other words, like they were like giving them benefits of when they as scientists themselves wouldn't have even thought of that particular application.
Yeah. So in your opinion then, your answer to Ron would be, it's entirely possible
absolutely.
that projects can be so super sensitive.
And I'm not a crackpot either. I don't want to talk about it.
I appreciate it, Greg. Okay, we're going to let you go.
That's fine. I really appreciate talking to you guys and giving me the opportunity to express my opinion. I'll probably be talking to you again sometime.
Well, I hope you do. I hope you listen to the program. And if we say anything that you know as an engineer that's out of line, well, call us on the carpet, will you?
I certainly will. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, man.
Thanks,
Bye.
Greg. Greg calling us from his cell phone there, so we had I appreciate him calling in, and we had little breakups here and there. We all know with cell phones how that goes. Hopefully the government has not anything to do with that, but Greg provided some great insight.
Yeah, so Ron sort of set the question, and and another one of our callers kind of helped us answer it. And I don't know that there's any easy answer to it, Ron. I know what you're talking about, and I would like to talk to you again because you do sound like you know a lot about the military as well as some of the subjects that we're talking on. Well, let me say this. In what is rapidly becoming a feature of this program, I think Rich has a trivia question he'd like to ask.
Oh, you're going to hit me with it now when I'm not queued up?
Oh, no. Okay, well, we'll wait.
It's going to be a musical thing. It's a musical thing.
All right. Last week when he presented it, the answers came fast and furious. So maybe it's good. I'll alert the listeners. Stand by. It's 954-581-1580. So when you hear Rich do the trivia question, you'll be ready to call in. So, before I get going any further into this week's subject, I'd like to offer you guys a brief recap of what we went into last week, in case some of you are just tuning in. Last week, we noted that according to a recent Gallup poll, which I have the results here, I'm still carrying it around with me, 50% of the American public believes that UFOs are real, and nearly the same percentage think that extraterrestrial life forms, or beings not of this planet, are visiting us. These UFO sightings and encounters with alien beings are occurring all over the planet. At least they're being reported all over the planet, and not just here in the good old USA. If we are being visited by extraterrestrials, who are they? What do they want? Where are they from? Okay, it's conjecture, but these are a few of the questions that I know I'd like to have answered. The phone number is 954-581-1580 here on Entertainment Radio, WSRF. I'm here because I want to know your opinions. I want to talk to you. So give us a call.
Okay, well, one of the things you may have noticed with our program is we like to play a little music underneath as we go. It kind of gives us a nice little noise floor, they call it in the business. But we're going to take advantage of that as best we can. You remember last week we opened a little bit from the X-Files. It was a nice way to open the show. And today a little bit E.T. from the extraterrestrial. So what we're going to do to play our trivia game today is we're going to stay within that genre, so to speak. And we're going to come a little music. I'm going to fade this little piece of music out, and I'm going to bring you up. Where is that piece of music? There it is. I'm going to bring up this piece of music, and I'm going to ask you if you can recognize this theme, where it came from. What very well-known television show did this come from? The side question might be, can you name the instrument that is being played? Let me crank it up for you a little bit here, folks. Does anybody remember? It'll flow along. We get a lot of this piece of music. Maybe we'll make this a two-parter. Well, the first question will be, can you identify the tune? Can you identify where it's from? And we'll crank it up a little bit more. It's way down there. This instrument was the first to create, if you will, synthesized sounds that we now know so well. People out there put their thinking caps on, see if they can come up with that one, and also where it came from. That is to say, where this theme came from, what television show. Well, you out there, these sci-fi fans that we have out there, give us some sort of idea as to where you think this may have come from. Whoa. Now, is that traditional or what? And we'll fade that out a little bit for you. And let you think about it a little bit. Oh, yeah.
I love it. Let me say that many of the questions surrounding UFOs and ETs have been dealt with by science fiction writers, so I like science fiction, and I know that Rich does too. We used that theme music, as Rich mentioned, from ET tonight to open the program. I think it would be fair to say that most people have seen that film and a lot of other science fiction films. So science fiction writers have dealt with traditionally many of the questions that revolve around questions of extraterrestrials and UFO and various aspects of those questions. In the film E.T., you might remember, I think, as I say, most people have seen the film. The E.T. was presented as a benign little figure, marooned on this planet and befriended by a young boy and eventually his whole family. The E.T. was ugly but warm and friendly and possessed of some remarkable powers, and the viewing audience ended up loving the little guy, as you often do in a Spielbergian film. On the other hand, we had the movie Independence Day, which presented a totally different picture of the alien visitors. They were even uglier than E.T., and their intentions were uglier still. They swooped in on the planet and began to destroy all of our major cities without warning. Still another version of an alien that was presented in one of my all-time favorite films that Ron touched on earlier, The Day the Earth Stood Still. And in that film, the alien visitor looked just like us. So the messages and images in these films and others show us a wide range of ET possibilities, from big to small, from friendly intentions to violent intentions. But these stories are science fiction. So my questions are, what are the reality of our situation? Do we in fact have any facts? Do we have any proof of extraterrestrials visiting Earth in their spacecraft? What do we really know, if anything? And what do you know, if anything? 581-1580. Call in. I'd like to hear from you.
And we do have a caller on the line. Let me see if I can punch up Jose here. Hang on one second. Jose, are you with us?
Yes.
Oh, good. You want to make a stab at the trivia question?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Where do you think that's from? What do you think that music is from? Do you have any idea? He's thinking.
I think it's from Outer Limits.
Well,
I thought it was from.
Well, that's a nice guess. You're in the right genre, but unfortunately, that's not the correct answer. But hopefully.
Sorry.
Bueller the buzzer.
But that's okay. We still don't have any presents or prizes to give away, even if you were correct.
Yeah,
Other than just the satisfaction of knowing, as well as everyone else, that you're right.
Coming across the airways. You've been hearing what we've been talking about here. Do you have any particular comment or perhaps a question for us while we've got you here? Perhaps not. Hello?
Well, I'd like a consolation prize.
A consolation prize?
That's some special golf balls.
A special golf balls?
With Cosmic Radio Network golf balls? That's an interesting idea for a promotion.
They can hit, and maybe they can reach another planet.
John Daly or a Tiger Woods type of drive, at least 300 yards would be a...
You better get a big Bertha or something out there. You want to drive one that far, it better be a big Bertha. That was cool. So
well, thanks for your input, man.
Well, I want to be able to hit it 300 light years.
Sounds like a good idea. Are you enjoying the show?
8 miles high.
8 miles high.
Okay.
Sounds like a good choice to me. Well, you are enjoying the show. Glad to hear that. Okay. Well, we're going to move on now to our next piece of business. Michael, if you want to pick up again. Thanks very much for calling, Jose. We'll talk to you later.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
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 Thanks, man. Again, we'd like to encourage all of you out there listening. If you want to get in on the conversation, if you want to sit there and listen, that's great. But any questions you have and any additions you can make are always welcome here. I know what my opinions are, and I'll always tell you what my opinions are if you want to know. But I'm here because I want to know what your opinions are. So let me continue on with some of my notes here. And I want to say that I have never personally seen an alien, so I'm going to let you know that. And of the pictures and videotape that I have seen that are supposed to be of aliens, none have really convinced me that the pictures and videos are real. But we do have reports from many individuals who claim to have contact with aliens. Funny enough, or maybe not, the descriptions they offer are very similar to the ones we're used to seeing in some of the films I mentioned. So people have reported seeing and interacting with aliens that are similar to human beings. This group of aliens has been given the name of Nordics. Nordics because they're reported to be tall, have light complexion, light hair, and light eyes. They say these aliens could blend into the general population and walk down our city streets with no one noticing anything strange about them. And that is sort of the image that the day the Earth stood still.
As to, so I didn't know where it came from. Let's see if we can punch her up here.
Okay.
Michael, and,
Let's go for it.
Okay, let's see what happens if we push the buttons again. It's always a mystery to us. Okay, do we have you out there?
Hello.
Hello. Nice to hear from you. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Ann, and I'm calling from Sunrise.
Great. Okay. You said you had an idea as to what the instrument was. What was it?
But the instrument was a theremin.
theremin is 100% correct. I'm glad that somebody remembers that instrument from the 50s. It was a great little box that you played with your hands, as silly as that sounds, but it was like a picture, folks, if you don't know what theremin is, you just picture an amplifier as you know it today, exposed wiring, and you took your hands and put it on its sides and the front and the bottom, and that's what made it go, woo, that was where all that was from.
An effect present in many of the early sci-fi films.
Yes, and it was invented by a man named theremin.
Coincidentally enough.
Hi,
Hi, Ann.
Hello.
Listening to the show, is there any particular comment or question you have for us?
Well, I didn't know, you said that the music was from a television show, and you said it wasn't The Outer Limits. The only other one I could guess would be The Twilight Zone, but I don't recall it from that.
No, it's not The Twilight Zone either. It looks like I came across a toughie here. The problem is, I guess, is that it's a type of theme that you heard throughout. You have pieces of it that actually sound like could have even come from the Star Trek TV series, little bits and pieces that you hear. But no, I think, well, I'll give it a couple more minutes. Boy, the hour is going by quick, Michael. Look at that.
Yeah.
Good times when you're having fun. So I'll wait a couple more minutes before I give it away, and then people will go, oh, yeah, that's the right answer. Let me ask you this. Have you ever seen anything in the sky or anything that you wondered about?
I haven't seen anything personally, but I do watch a lot of the programs on television about it on Discovery Channel. There was something last night, as a matter of fact, and several things makes you think.
It does make you think, and that's what we hope to do. We'd like to think about it. We'd like to come up with some of our own opinions and answers, and ultimately we'd like to search out the truth. Because I truly want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get some answers. Thanks very much for calling, Ann. We appreciate it very much.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Ann. Sorry you didn't get the trivia quiz. Last week's, I think, was accused Rich of making it too easy, so this week he came in to stump the band, and evidently he's done
I've
it.
succeeded in doing it, yes.
Do we have to take a break?
Why, do you want to?
No, I just want to know where we are.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you what. Once you get us we'll need to take a break in about 30 seconds, actually.
In about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, that leaves me about time to do absolutely nothing.
Oh, well.
Well, no, wait. I will do something here, and I will revert back to my old friend here, the Gallup poll. This Gallup poll was taken in 1996, and it was asked about various paranormal subjects such as channeling, astrology, ghosts, angels, and also UFOs. Again, 50% of the people polled seem to believe that UFOs are real, and nearly the same amount believe that extraterrestrials are visiting this planet. The question of, do you think there is life of some form on other planets in the universe or not? The answer was sort of overwhelmingly yes, and that was a 72% of the people polled said that they do believe there's life in some form on other planets in the universe, and that, I guess, could go right back to the Mars rock that NASA brought out earlier this year and showed that perhaps there were bacteria, small microbe forms of life on Mars, which of course would indicate that life is not unique to this planet, something that we've always considered it to be from the very beginning. I see Rich pointing toward the phone again, so we have another caller.
Yeah, we have Bill from Davie. I'm going to try and bring Bill on, and Bill took a guess. We get Bill up here. Bill, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Great. Bill already told me on the phone he made a guess at Lost in Space, and I guess I have made it too tough, and that wasn't quite correct, but I'll tell you what, I will give the answer after the next break, see if anyone else comes up with it. But Bill was mentioning something about happening on A&E tonight. We were just talking about television, so Bill, why don't you tell us about it a little bit?
I've seen it on the advertisement for A&E. It's supposed to be a special on UFOs. It starts at 7 and runs.
Is information that has been presented before in programs presented on different evenings, and now they've combined a bunch of this information, which is what they do quite often, and then if there's anything new, they also throw that in, sort of like the old In Search Of series, where they seem to recycle that stuff.
Well, I'm at work, so I'm having to tape it, so I'll get to watch it another day.
Yeah, well, I certainly tune them in because you never know when something new is going to come up. As I say this, I've seen the footage of the Phoenix Lights. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
It's absolutely incredible stuff. I mean, hundreds of people viewed this sighting, and really credible people. And I've seen even the people who made the reports interviewed. I mean, these are just regular people, and their question is, why doesn't someone just tell us what these things are? If they know, why don't they just tell us what these are? We're big people, and we would understand. Well, I think there's a lot of reasons why they don't, and we can get into some of those at another date. So I think we have to go to break. Is that true, Rich?
Yep, I'm afraid we do.
Okay.
Thanks for the call. Make sure you get that. You got your VCR time for that, huh? You're programmed and ready to go to record that.
It's all set, ready to go.
Are you enjoying the program?
Yes, sir.
I really appreciate your calling in, and I hope you'll continue to listen, and maybe we can stimulate you to call us again.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, we've got to take a little bit of a break here. We just want to get a couple of things out of the way here, a little bit of business. If you've ever had a paranormal event happen to you, whether it was witnessing a UFO, a psychic experience, or maybe you once saw the Loch Ness Monster, anything's possible, we'd be very interested in talking with you and perhaps having you as a guest on the program. If you'd like to share your experience, you can call us during the program, or you can contact us at another number, 954-321-6600. Again, that's 954-321-6600. And not to confuse you, matter, but we have a number here at the station, 954-581-1580. We have a few minutes left in the program, about 7 or 8 minutes to go. We've got to go to a break here right now. So think up some more questions. We'll get back, cover a little bit more on aliens and what's going on out there today. And we'll be back in just a little bit. This is Rich Rudner along with Michael Garrett here at the Cosmic Radio Network. We've had some real interesting callers today, this evening I should say. And we only have a few minutes left in our program, so I guess I probably ought to go ahead and tell you what the answer to the trivia question was.
Please.
Oh, I know, we were waiting and debating. I don't want to forget. The name of the show, you may remember, was called One Step Beyond. And One Step Beyond was that early show that used that piece of music and then was pretty much imitated from that point on in terms of style and approach and so on. And yes, we had guesses from people thinking The Outer Limits and... somebody said Lost in Space and some other things. Fortunately, somebody knew Ann from Sunrise knew it was a theremin. At least we had somebody there who was born in the 50s.
Well, I love sci-fi, and again, I want to say I do think that it's not just frivolous. Science fiction writers, I think science fiction, here comes an opinion. I think science fiction is going to go down as the serious literary style of our century. And the poignancy and the meaning of many of these stories and the thoughts behind it are going to be timeless. I'm certain of that. And I know that many of the movies that we watch, we're going to watch for a long, long time. Before we run out of time, I did want to say that I did talk before about the Nordics being one group of aliens that looked very similar to us, that, in other words, could march around in our society and we'd never know it. There are other reports as well, and some people report seeing short, gray beings with large bulbous-shaped eyes and large bulbous heads. This group has been nicknamed by everyone as Greys. That's what they call them. And they've in turn been subdivided into subgroups depending on their heights, the small ones and the short ones. The E.T. in the film I talked about earlier, the film of the same name, and also the E.T.s in the movie Close Encounters are sort of patterned after this type. So if you've seen those two movies, you know what people are reporting as the Greys. And I mean, these are people who are reporting these have been abduction cases. Some people who claim to have seen downed aliens in wrecked spacecraft that the government has recovered, which is another whole program unto itself. And on some occasions, in addition to the Greys, some people report seeing creatures that resemble robots or androids. Coincidentally, very few of the sightings of aliens are reported as being like what we saw on Independence Day or the Alien movies. In other words, very few monsters of just extreme shapes have been reported. Most of them have somewhat human characteristics that people have been reported. What do you think? Are these encounters with aliens only in people's imaginations? Are they hoaxes, people just putting us on? Which came first, the description of these aliens by those who claim contact, or did the film versions give those people a picture of what they reported seeing? 581-1580, we got a few minutes left in the program, and if aliens are visiting us, what do they want here? That's another question I'd like to know. Are we just a tourist attraction in this part of the galaxy? They just swing by for a quick look at the primitive population and then zoom off to a luxury resort somewhere for the remainder of their vacation?
You know, it's one of those things we we talked about this, so we started talking about it a little earlier, and then we got distracted by some other things, which is good. Our callers really are designed. Our show is based on wanting the callers to interact with us, and
I want to talk to you guys.
Know, they get into things, and whatever they get into is fine with us, and we're happy to jump around and get into anything. But in the few minutes we have left, we have about 3 minutes left on our hour. The base question was, why hasn't somebody looked us in the face and said, okay, here's what's going out there? Why haven't the aliens stepped in? And maybe we need to get into this more next week when we have some more time to talk about it. But when Michael brought this up, again, it brought it to mind. We think about series like the old Star Trek theories, and Gene Roddenberry, who I think was brilliant in
Absolutely.
his insight and the things that he got into, and putting aside his political views and so on, which he brought into all his shows, but simply one specific theme that recurred throughout the series comes back to two words, and was called the Prime Directive. You know, and it seems to us, and it seems to me in particular, if that wasn't one of the more brilliant ideas, and it is that in fact why aliens have not, really stepped up and said, hi, here we are, how you doing? Here's what we know. Here's, and so on. And maybe they have, and they're doing it secretly with the government, hence the discussion with the stealth bomber, or the gentleman that called on his cell phone earlier on tonight, and talked about his experience and what he knew.
What would contact mean? I mean, this is something, if you want to sit down and ponder a question about if UFOs are real, if UFOs turn out to be real, and in fact they are piloted by extraterrestrials, and these extraterrestrials come to our planet and either extend a hand of peace or make contact with us, what would that mean to our core beliefs and our entire system of philosophy and science, if they're so technologically advanced? If, I know I'm asking a lot of ifs, but I think it could very well be one of the most significant questions that we've ever pondered in the history of mankind. Where we came from, where we're going, why we're here. I think you might find some very interesting conjecture if you were to start to imagine that an extraterrestrial would land here and change. To me, it would change just about every preconception that we have about the history of our planet and of ourselves and of the whole universe.
I think it's interesting subject matter, and I think that we need our listeners to think about it a little bit and put those questions forth to us next week. Because right now, we've got to wrap our show up. I'm sorry to tell you that.
Wow, that was quick.
The hour has just spun by.
Well, I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate all the callers who called in. Some great questions and some great comments. And please do it again. We'll be with you again next week.
This is the Cosmic Radio Network. We now return control of your radio receiver to your normally scheduled programming. The opinions and ideas expressed in this program by the host, guests, and callers are their own and in no way reflect those of this radio station, the program sponsor of any government agencies, foreign or domestic, or any of their employees. Until next Sunday at 6 p.m. here on 1580 AM radio, on behalf of Michael Garrett, this is Rich Rudner asking you to remember the truth, my friends, may be right here.